Yo, what's going on, everybody? Today we're going to be talking about my Limbo Exodia Contagion ZOUL build. The fact that I'm even saying those words is absolutely amazing because I absolutely love Limbo as a Warframe, and this build has easily put him in my top 5 favorite Warframes. That's how awesome this build is, y'all. I don't know if anybody else in there has been in this boat like I have, but when I first started playing Limbo, he was super, and I mean super cool to me. I absolutely fell in love with his lore and design, but I could never find a build that just stood out to me. But here recently, I was trying to run deep Archimedia, and I noticed that I actually had to make a Limbo build, which caused me to do a little bit more research and see what I could really do with Limbo. And I'm sure this build is kind of known already, but I never knew about it until I did this research recently. And after the research, the build with Limbo has quite literally become one of my favorite in the game, and it is so good. You can quite literally do hundreds of millions of damage with your weapons with Limbo. It's kind of nice, which is exactly why I'm making a ZOUL build with Limbo for today. Though I'm sure there are many ways you can make use of Limbo, this is just the way my build works. Let's go ahead and talk about how you make Limbo broken. So normally the way you play Limbo is you use your Cataclysm so you can trap the enemies in the Rift plane, and then you use the Stasis ability so they stay still in the Rift, which is already pretty good on its own. Once they're frozen, you can just run up to them and kill them. But where it gets crazy is when you start involving Rift Surge. The Rift Surge by itself is okay. Whenever you use this ability, you summon Rift energy that just surrounds your enemies. You can see it spin in a circle around them. This ability has two effects. The first one's called Radial Banish. Radial Banish will activate whenever an enemy affected by Rift Surge exits the Rift plane, which is the same thing as them leaving the Cataclysm bubble. Whenever they leave it, Radial Banish will activate and all surrounding enemies will be pulled into the bubble. The second effect that Rift Surge does is called Transfer. Transfer activates whenever you get a kill on an enemy that has the Rift Surge energy surrounding them. Once you get the kill, the Rift energy will go to the nearest enemy, which by itself, again, is not terrible, but all of that together on top of his first ability is not enough to make him broken until you start adding in the augment mod for his third ability. As you can see, it gives Limbo 30% extra damage for each enemy affected by Rift Surge when they're in the Rift. This basically means every time you have Cataclysm active and you use your third ability, every enemy affected by the third ability will give you a damage buff. And this does scale with ability strength, which is already fucking amazing as it is, but where it gets even crazier for today's build is the fact that this damage can be multiplicative with the Exodia Contagion Explosion. It can also be multiplicative with the Glaive Explosion, and let me tell you, that alone makes this absolutely insane. More so when you're playing solo, and there's a very good reason for that. If you're playing solo, all the enemies are focused on you. The more enemies that are in your bubble, the more of a damage buff you can give yourself in return. This build is so good that I tested it out in a survival on Lua, and I hit damage cap solo relatively fast. But even without hitting damage cap every single swing, I'm still doing anywhere from 50 million all the way to 900 million and potentially billions to damage cap after that. So when I say this build is quite fucking amazing, you can see for yourself the destruction that Limbo is causing. Really, it's the ZOW, of course, but the ZOW is doing so much damage thanks to Limbo, you feel me? And man, it's just an absolute fun playstyle. I highly recommend it if you guys haven't tried it. Now let's get into a little bit more about the build. As you can see, I replaced the one with Nourish. I got 5 Talforge Archon shards on my boy, as you can see. 2 of them are yellow ones that give me extra casting speed, and you can argue that you don't really want the casting speed and you could put something else here, but in my personal opinion, especially when you're running the higher end content, maybe like Deep Archimedia, having casting speed is essential because my boy, I got 370 health and 370 shield with 135 armor. That's 31 damage reduction, by the way. That's terrible, but that's exactly why my mod setup is the way it is. As you can see, I got Brief Respite, which gets me shields every time I use an ability. Got Rolling Guard so I can become invulnerable for 3 seconds, and I get rid of status effects. I got Fast Deflection for more shield recharge and less shield recharge delay, which puts my shield recharge rate at 0.6 seconds. Other than that, I got Overextended for the range so the Cataclysm bubble can be big. As you can see, it puts it at 30 meters, and yeah, it definitely makes a difference when you're trying to get as many enemies as possible in the Cataclysm bubble. Other than that, I got Primed Flow for extra energy so I can just spam my abilities. I got Prime Continuity continuity for the extra ability duration, which in my opinion is quite important. I think ability duration on Limbo is actually clutch because you want to have his second, third, and fourth ability active as long as possible. When it comes to his 3 though, I like to constantly spam it whenever a bunch of enemies walk in the bubble. What I typically do is I use stasis before I use cataclysm, then I follow up with cataclysm and the enemies are already frozen, then I follow up with rift surge so I can get the damage buff. And once I kill all the enemies, I deactivate cataclysm and repeat the process. But yeah, other than that, blind rage, transient fortitude for the ability strength, and before I got distracted, all my red archon shards give me ability strength, and they are tau forged as well, so I got 45% extra ability strength, chilling. And then I got mole augmented to increase my ability strength even more and give myself an even stronger buff. And then I got arcane energized to help with the energy recovery. Oh yeah, and I also got power drift for extra ability strength and the knockdown resist. Overall, I would call this build a 10 out of 10. Feel free to let me know what you guys think of this build down in the comments. I'm definitely, and I mean definitely, going to be making more videos on this build in the future. Before we wrap up though, I do want to go ahead and of course talk about the ZOW that I'm using, because this is my strongest ZOW that I currently own. It may look like a polearm, but this is actually a hammer ZOW, and these are the parts that I use to build the ZOW right here. As far as the mod setup goes, this is what I'm rocking. I got a stupid good Riven mod. I mean, dude, just look at that. Blood Rush for the extra crit chance when I build up the melee combo counter, body count so I can have a good amount of combo duration. And typically what I like to use as well is secondary dexterity and primary dexterity, but on this run in particular, I was using primary frostbite. I got the condition overload for extra damage, and I got the Kuva Nukor to apply a bunch of statuses to my enemies. And on top of all that, to make this weapon even stronger, if we take a look at my operator real quick, and then we go to equipment, you can see that I got this operator arcane called Magus Agris that increases the crit damage by 300% for heavy blades. And hammer ZOWs are considered heavy blades, so this arcane is pretty clutch. After the melee transference, your next 4 heavy blade attacks will have plus 300% crit damage, which, yeah, on the ZOW build with Limbo definitely makes a difference. It helps you do some crazy damage. But yeah, guys, that's pretty much gonna be it for this video. You can see the results for yourself in the footage, and man, let me know what you guys think of this build, because like I said, me personally, I always liked Limbo. I always wanted Limbo to be really good, but I could just never find that build that really stuck with me and really stood out to make him worth my time. But this build is 1,000,000% it for me as an Exodia Contagion ZOW player. When it comes to this game, Exodia Contagion ZOWs are my favorite way to play it. That's why I call myself a ZOW player. And the fact that I can use the ZOW with one of my favorite OG Warframes has definitely bumped him up in my favorite list. I feel like there's so many other ways you can make use with Limbo as well. I mean, dude, the Rift Torrent Augment mod is insane. I got up to a 3,000% damage buff with Limbo. That's multiplicative for the ZOW. Oh my gosh, dude, an absolute 10 out of 10 build in my opinion. Thanks for watching the video. Like and subscribe if you really enjoyed it. Helps me out a lot. And yeah, guys, that's gonna be it for me. Keep your head up and stay positive. With all that being said, thanks for watching.